Hello my friends, welcome to my channel Life with Lisette. If you are new here, welcome. If you are returning, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your patience throughout these last 2 weeks because I have not been able to upload. And if you hear me a little bit nasally, yes, I am getting sick. I think it was just my body being run down to its limit, and we're now back to an empty house. And yesterday morning, I woke up feeling like complete crap, but I knew that today I had to record at least one video. So here I am. I do have my little cough drops. I have a bad cough. I have a fever. So if I start to cough, I will take one of these. As a matter of fact, let me just do this now. So I'm going to apologize in advance for what this is going to sound like on the video, but this isn't important. What's important is what I'm going to share with you. So in my last video, I had mentioned that in my video about me getting laid off, in that video, I had mentioned that my husband and I had gotten out of $60,000 of debt a month before. We had paid our last credit card payment that August, and I got laid off in September. Or I was told I was getting laid off in September. And that was such a relief for us because we had started the debt payoff or the credit card payoff 3 years prior. 3 years prior to that, we had a friendship, a couple that we literally did everything together. We would hang out together. We would spend weekends together. We went on vacations together. We did a lot of family events together. And we were just really in this position or in this place of having a really good time with them. We had a lot of things in common. We all smoked cigars. This was at the time that I was smoking cigars and drinking. And it was a really fun friendship. The problem with that was that we were spending a lot of money in that friendship because their taste was different than ours. They had very expensive taste, we don't. But those weekends were anywhere from $300 to $1,000 weekends with them. And remember, I said we spent every weekend with them. But 3 years prior to me getting laid off, that friendship had dissolved over something very stupid that had nothing to do with money, actually. It dissolved. And my husband and I were very hurt because we had invested and we were in that friendship for the right reasons. We had invested a lot. We had spent a lot of time, and it was something that we weren't prepared for. And I tried my best. My husband tried. We tried to fix that friendship, but they were reluctant. And I pursued that for a couple of months. And then I decided, you know what? I'm not going to push this, right? It is what it needs to be. And so that friendship just genuinely and organically dissolved. At the time, I couldn't understand it, just like I couldn't understand when I got laid off, right? But in reality, that happened for us, not to us. And although we hurt and we mourned that friendship, it was something that had to go away. And I'm going to do a video talking about that whole process and the different levels of friendships, because as adults, I'm sure I'm not the only one that has experienced this. And we think that we're adults and we vetted out, right, the right people compared to the people we don't want in our lives. And again, we were in it for the right reasons, but nonetheless, the friendship dissolved and it has never, ever been fixed, and I'm okay with that. So once that relationship or that friendship dissolved, we really had to buckle down on our budget. Finances was probably the single highest reason for arguments between my husband and I. And we really never argued a lot. Yes, we've had our deep discussions and stuff as a marriage. Nothing is perfect. But to have really hardcore arguments, it was always about money. It was always about finances. He would always open up the bills and see our balances and flip out. And, you know, he's the type of man that I handled the finances at home. So he never really saw his check. It would get direct deposited. And yes, I would pay bills, but the amount of dollars that were in, or at least the amount that was in the balance of these credit cards, was insane. And so I want to walk you through what steps we took. And this is, again, my personal perspective. These are the steps that I made, and this video is coming to you as a strong request from a lot of you. So thank you for the idea and thank you for your support. And so I wanted to do this video as we embark in the end of the year, which is only a couple of weeks away. I wanted to do this video to give you some perspective and possibly help you determine what changes you can make in the new year. If you yourself are battling with any kind of debt, right? Whether it be credit card, financial aid, or student loans, car debt, whatever it is, that some of these steps will help you in establishing a new routine. And sometimes we think of a budget as a restriction, right? I remember when I started this journey of getting out of debt, I would write down the word budget and I would cringe, because budget to me felt so constricted. It felt like I could not even spend money. Like we couldn't do anything. We couldn't be happy. We couldn't do anything because it was so restrictive. And what I have learned to appreciate is that budget actually gives you freedom. Creating a budget for you and your family gives you more freedom than you think. But we're so afraid of budgeting and all of the nuances that come with it. And maybe it's just the reality of, at least for me it was, of really seeing how much debt we were in. I was so afraid of that. I knew it was a lot. I just didn't know how much. And so budgeting, is something that I have found great power and great liberation in terms of getting our family financially safe, in a safe place, in a healthy place. Budgeting is a healthy approach. Think of it as something that will help your family and not hinder it. And I'm just speaking from my own experience. So let me walk you through the 7 steps that I took to help us with that process and getting out of $60,000 of debt in 3.5 years. It was a little bit over 3 years. It was like 3 years and 4 months. And I want to walk you through what our steps were. And I have my notes here, so I'll be looking down a little bit to show you, because I don't want to lose track of the notes. But the first and foremost thing, which I have kind of just alluded to before, is that you need to know your starting point. You need to know where you're standing. You need to know where you are so that you can know where you're going, right? And so if you don't know where you're going and you're just saving money or thinking you're saving money without having a purpose or a vision, that is not going to work. And so knowing your starting point is vital to this debt-free journey. And by knowing your starting point, that means you're going to print out, or if you get them in the mail, all of your bank statements. Yes, all of them. If you have multiple accounts, get those. If you just have one account, then it's very much easier. You're going to get all the statements for where your money is going. Well, how much is coming in, how much is going out. You're going to pull up all of your statements for all of your debt, all of your loans, your credit card debt, whatever it is. You are going to gather all the documents that you need to start your journey, because you need to see the big picture. You need to see everything that's at play. You cannot just look at your bank statement and figure out, this is how much is going out, this is how much is coming in, this is how much is going out, so I'm just going to reduce how much is going out. That's not how this works. You have to look at every single aspect of this budget and of your finances. So you want to start looking at your statements. You want to pool all of them. And you want to see anything that you are spending money on, whether it be a credit card, a student loan, car payments, mortgage, whatever it is. You want to list all of that. And let me also preface this, which I failed to mention earlier, is that my $60,000 of debt did not include my mortgage. That was separate from my mortgage. My $60,000 debt included primarily credit cards, student loans, which were balances were put on credit cards, car notes, and just ridiculously spending money. So that was part of our debt. So step 1 is know where you are, know where your feet are planted, know where your starting point is. And the only way to do that is to gather all the information. And then step 2 is you're going to take a notebook. So whether that be, and I did it on a legal pad, but you're going to just take a basic notebook and you are going to list all of your debt. So regardless of what bucket they're in, so if it's a fixed asset, if it's, whatever it is, right? A variable expense, it doesn't even matter. I don't want to get into accounting terms with you right now. You're just going to take all of your debt and you're going to list it. You don't need anything fancy. Let's not overcomplicate this whole process, because we tend to think much like other things as starting a YouTube channel, right? We want to have everything perfect. And the idea is to just write things down. And so that's what I did. I took a legal notepad, the long ones, and I just wrote, I started to list everything. All the credit cards, all 11 of them. Yes, 11. I listed all 11 credit cards down. I listed, eating out. I put all of our car loans. I put our mortgage, right? I listed just everything down to give me an idea of what is it that I'm working against, because I'm not working for that. I was working against it. And next to each item, that's where having those documents, like I mentioned in step 1, printing them out, or if you get them in the mail, putting them in a folder, having them all available. And what I did was I just, with a ruler, I wrote columns down. I wrote the name of the debt. I wrote what the current balance was at the time. I wrote what the interest rate was, and then what the monthly payment was, right? That was it. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. I just wrote down the name of the debt, the current balance, the interest rate, and then how much is due every month on that balance. So that was step 2. Step 3, and this one's a hard one, is saying no to new debt. Especially now with the holiday season. If you are like me and you love Marshalls, because I love me some Marshalls and Home Goods, what is the question that you get asked every single time when you go to checkout? Would you like to open a new card? You get 10% off, or you get 20% off, and you get rewards on the card, blah, 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 right? They go on and on. It's very enticing. 0%, you can apply. It takes 2 minutes. And we get caught up in that moment because we think we want to save 10% or 20%. And most often those cards are 24.9% interest rates. So you go, you apply, you get approved, you get 10% off your $200 order purchase, and you get $40 off at 24.9%. And then that month comes to pass in January, you get that bill, you pay the minimum amount. That 24.9% is going to take you, even on a $300 purchase, it's going to take you about a year to pay it off. Yes, if you pay the minimal amount. But I don't want to get into that right now. So, say no to new debt. You are not going to get a new credit card. You are not going to get a new car. You are not going to pay with your credit card at meals and shopping. You're not going to incur any new debt. That's very important. Step 4 is you're going to reduce your expenses. And what do I mean by that? When I did my process, I had to look at my list of things, right? I had to look at my list of all of my expenses, subscriptions, credit cards, shopping, right? Groceries, eating out, movies, all the things. You want to have a nice comprehensive list. You don't want to leave anything off the table when you are writing down all of your debt and all of your costs and spending. And so I had to do that analysis of, how do I reduce my expenses? The simple question for me that I asked myself when I looked at that list was, what do I need versus what do I want? Do I need another subscription? Do I need another streaming services, or do I want it? And that for me changed my perspective and how I approached budgeting. And so that includes your cable, your subscriptions, your phone, right? Your streaming apps, just all the things. And subscriptions is a dark rabbit hole because when we apply for a subscription, they already have our credit card information. So whether it's your debit card or a regular credit card, that company already has it. They're not going to alert you that your subscription is up and you should cancel. And so, what if you subscribed to get 6 months free of Hulu? On month 7, they're not going to notify you that your subscription is now done and you're out of the trial period. They're going to continue to take money out of your account, or they're going to continue to charge your credit card, whatever it is they have available. So they're in it for themselves. They're not in it for you. I know if you have an Apple phone, an iPhone, you can actually look at your subscriptions on your iPhone and see what it is that you subscribe to. A lot of apps. That was one of the things that really got me too. I didn't realize how much money I was spending on apps. And so looking at all of your expenses and finding ways to reduce your expenses. The step 5 is to lower your interest rates. What I did was I took all of my credit cards, which is I used my list and my interest rates. And I called the credit card companies that have the highest interest rate because I was still paying on them. I was just paying the minimal amount because we didn't have any residual income. So you call those credit card companies because you have a steady record of always paying your credit cards on time. And you call them and see if they can reduce the interest rates. Some say yes, some say no. For those that said no to me, what I did was I took that Marshall's credit card that had 24.9% interest rate, and I took 5 other credit cards, and I moved all of those balances over to a 0% credit card. Here is the risk with a 0% credit card. If you are not on top of it, if you don't do the homework and the pre-work before, just like subscriptions and apps, you're going to miss that window. And then you're going to fall into that bracket of the new interest rate when the promotion expires. And so what I did was I took, let's say, 5 or 6 smaller credit cards, and I moved them over into a 0% promotional interest rate card. Let's say I would always try to apply for the credit cards that had a 1-year promotion. And the month or a month and a half before the promotion ended, I put a reminder on my phone that would remind me when I needed to change and move those credit cards over to a new credit card. But before I did that, I would call the credit card company to see if they could extend my promotion or move me into a different promotion for another 12 months. Some of them did, some of them didn't. Okay. But it's important that you try to lower your interest rates in whatever capacity you can. That is what worked for me. I'm sharing all the steps that I took that worked for me. And this is my first of probably a few videos that I will do regarding budgeting. But I wanted to at least give you some inspiration on something that you can start doing right now before the year ends. And as you approach, if you celebrate the holidays, you celebrate Christmas and you're starting to do Christmas shopping, I don't want you to have buyer's remorse in January and see how much debt you are in. Sit down, spend a couple of hours. It's going to take you a few hours to do it all. Just spend a few hours to sit down and do your homework. And in legal terms, it's called due diligence, right? You sit down and you write all of your current debt, and you start really peeling away at that awful, smelly onion called debt. So it's important that you sit down and do all that. You need to know where you're starting. Step number 6 is to reduce your expenses. That means that instead of going out to eat or ordering out to eat 4, 5, 6 days a week, you're only going to order out 1 day a week, right? And or you're only going to eat out 1 day a week. So what my husband and I did, we really buckled down, and our daughters were still here. We do everything as a family. And we sat down and we looked at all the things that could potentially cost us money. My daughters were in college, and so it was important for them to eat. I wanted to make sure that they had food. And we sat down and said, what is realistic here? What is realistic based on our lifestyles at the moment? And what we decided was, number 1, I was going to start meal prepping. So I was already cooking 5 to 6 days a week, but I was cooking every single day. I didn't make enough for leftovers. So I decided to go down my meal prepping journey. And if you want videos on that, I can do that too. But I started to meal prep. So we knew what we were eating for dinner Sunday through Thursday. We allowed ourselves to eat out only one day a week, and we had to choose. Was that going to be Friday or was that going to be Saturday? Because we were not going to eat out every single day of the weekend. And then thirdly, what we did was we only went to BYOBs, because remember at the time I was still drinking. And so we decided, if a lot of the cost of going out to eat is alcohol. And we knew that. So we decided, okay, let's see what places we can go to that are BYOB, still not restrict us from eating out, but kind of controlling that whole aspect of the experience of eating out. So that was one way that we were able to curb our expenses and reduce them dramatically. We also started making protein shakes in the morning for breakfast, and we would not eat breakfast out. So no more Dunkin' runs, no more Starbucks runs. We would make coffee at home, and we would leave some. My husband would make coffee in the morning, and he would leave enough for all of us to put in our tumblers and take to work. We also decided to pack our own lunches, including my daughters. They decided to pack their own lunches when they were in college, and that included, fruits, some kind of a vegetable, a protein, and a carb. And so they were able to, we bought these fancy lunch boxes, and they were able to control what they were eating. It also helped them, throughout their studies, because they had more energy. They didn't feel that 3 o'clock slump from eating unhealthy. So it had an all-around positive impact for us. So those are, that was number 6, is finding ways to reduce your expenses. I think that's one of the hardest ways that will test you in terms of this budget experience, is changing our behaviors, changing our day-to-day to accommodate our new lifestyle. Either it's health and fitness, or a new lifestyle of trying to get out of debt. And then lastly, the last thing that we did is we used, I didn't know it was called this at the time. I do know that that's what it is now, because I had never heard of Dave Ramsey. Never heard of the man, never had watched a single video. But I felt, when I did that homework of pulling out all of our statements, me making the minimal payment, because I had 11 credit cards that I needed to pay. So the amount was spread, right? So I would take the credit card that I had to pay the highest balance on, or the highest minimal amount. And that's how I did my list. But I realized nothing was changing. The balances I felt weren't moving at all. And it was through this exercise that I realized that. And so what I decided to do was, okay, I'm going to move all these other smaller credit cards, right? So I moved 5 or 6, whatever. Credit card companies have different restrictions on how many and what type. So let's say you do a Citibank, you can't transfer another Citibank account into that new promotional Citibank card. So look, read the fine print. Some of them do offer, or they at least cost about a 3% of your overall balance that you're going to transfer. That's what they charge you. But when you look at 3% compared to 24.9, I took that loss. But it's 3% based off of the total amount that you're transferring. So I want to also put that disclaimer out there. Every credit card has their own restrictions and their own percentage rates. And I had one credit card that didn't charge me anything to transfer. It was a small promotion window. I took advantage of it. And so look for these, right? Look for them when you get them in the mail. So the avalanche method is what I used when I did my budget. And what avalanche method for me meant, I didn't know it at the time that it had a title, was I took my credit card that had the highest interest rate, and I paid to get that credit card off of my list. And there's a process for that. You can look up Dave Ramsey. I can also do a video to walk you through what that avalanche method is. Other people use the snowball method. The snowball method means you take your credit card that has the lowest balance, you pay the minimal amount on all of your other credit cards, you put a larger amount on any residual income that you have. You pay a larger amount on that smallest credit card and you pay it off. You do that until you pay that low balance credit card off. Has nothing to do with interest rates. It has more to do with the balance. The avalanche method is specifically tied to the interest rate. So for me, I wanted to get rid of these interest rates because the reality is, let's say I had a credit card that I owed $1,000 on. It has an interest rate of 24.9. If I sent them $100, which was the minimum balance, only $80 was going towards my balance. The other 20, or really 75, the other $25 was going towards interest. So 100% of my $100 wasn't going towards the balance. It was a quarter of it was going towards interest. And that's what I learned in this whole process. And there are people that have already figured this out in their 20s and 30s. Listen, I applaud you. I learned this later on in my life, and so I wanted to come on here and share it with all of you, especially if you're struggling with debt and you are struggling with anything financially and trying to get out of this credit card debt rabbit hole that most of us fall into. And so I use the avalanche method, which is taking the larger percentage rate, the larger interest rate of a credit card and focusing on paying that. Now, how do I know how much to pay towards that avalanche? I can do a separate video on that because there is a process. The purpose of this video today was for me to provide you with 7 big steps that I took from a very high level lens of how I started my debt-free journey and how I started the process of really owning my debt, coming to grips with the reality of the amount, which was $60,000, which almost made me literally pass out when I told my husband the amount of debt that we were in, which included student loans, by the way, but nonetheless, it was still a debt. I could see his face turn completely white because he knew that our debt was high. He just didn't know that it was that high. But I will tell you that after we had that conversation and we started to really go all in on this budget and this new lifestyle that we had established for ourselves, and he saw that we were slowly chipping away, and we did have a little bit more income, kind of, to maybe eat out twice a week, right? A year and a half into the process, we had a little bit more residual income, and so we were able to splurge a little bit. Another way to reduce expenses, by the way, let me also say this, we didn't take a vacation. We did not go on a single vacation for 3.5 years. Not a single one. We would do like weekend getaways, kind of, but we never took a 1-week vacation or flew anywhere. If we did a weekend, we drove somewhere and did that. But we really didn't even kind of go on vacation for 3.5 years. But that was a sacrifice and a choice that we made based on our priorities. This is an individual process. This is an individual perspective. You are going to do what makes you happy, what you feel will get you to execute the budget and get out of debt in your own way. This is just a blueprint, a foundation that you can use to start with. It is not the end-all be-all, but I wanted to provide you with something that you can reference and actually help you get out of debt. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And until the next one, adios.